Thank you, Kim. That was a very interesting introduction. And a very good afternoon to everybody. I know it's after lunch and everybody might be getting a bit snoozy, but rest assured this next 20-25 minutes will be very exciting. So put your seatbelt on tight and enjoy the ride. And this session will be all about innovations and insights and inspiration from Asia. The title is What You Don't Know Will Kill You, which is a bit morbid, but our job in this session is to make sure that you know what you need to know to be able to thrive and succeed in today's innovation landscape. And to do that, the simplest thing to do is simply to just look at the right places. So for the next 20 minutes, again, I will be sharing insights and innovations from Asia, where I'm based at, and to basically challenge you and ask you the question, when it comes to your next innovation, ideas, inspiration, are you really looking at the right places for inspiration? So before we even talk about Asian innovations, let me ask you, what comes to mind when you think about Asia? And I was talking to somebody earlier today, and she was like, oh, you're going to do a presentation about Asia. Is it going to be about robots? Well, maybe yes, maybe not. We'll see and we'll figure it out. Some other people, when they think about Asia, they think about cheap stuff from China, in quotation marks, fake things as well. But to prepare for this presentation, I basically asked all the non-Asians I know, like, what do you actually think about Asia before I even tell people about Asian innovations? And the overwhelming majority gave me the same answer, and it was this. You know, it's cute selfies. For real, for all that Asia has to offer, that's what you think about when you think about Asia. Well, this whole session will hopefully change your mind, and we're going to see Asian innovations and what you can learn from that landscape. And to do that, just to make it more fun and make sure everybody's awake, I'm going to pull up 3 statements about Asian innovations, Asian consumers, Asian landscapes. And 2 of those statements are true, and your job is to guess which one is the false statement. So are you ready? The first one. In Asia, you can manage your investments, order noodles, hail a cab, book a cleaning service for your dirty dog, all on one application. The second statement, teenagers in Asia are making thousands of dollars just eating and mopping the floor on the internet. The third statement, in China, people can book an on-demand test drive in their neighbor's car. All right. So how many of you think, by a show of hands, this one is the false statement? Okay, nobody thinks this is false? The second one, how many of you think this is the false statement? We have 1 person over here, 2, 3, maybe 10% of people think this one is false. How many of you think this one is the false statement? Okay, so the majority thinks the third statement is false. Well, I'm not going to tell you which one is true or false right now, but we'll figure it out together along the way. So here's the thing. When it comes to Asian innovations, people always think of weird stuff. Case in point, the sticker culture. How many of you are familiar with the sticker culture in Asia? Yeah, so maybe half the people in the room are familiar. So if you're not familiar, what you see on the screen are stickers that people send to each other on the Japan-based messaging app Line. And I'm sure if you were familiar with it, the first time you saw it, you would have laughed at it, and you're like, who would use something like this? Only silly teenage Asian girls would use something like this, but nobody else. But let me ask you a question. How many of you use Facebook Messenger stickers? Where did the inspiration for that come from? Or the iMessage effects. And how many people actually love iMessage effects? And that's the thing when you look at Asian innovations that seem very laughable on the surface. That, oh, it's silly, but look beyond the face value of that innovation and think about the insights that it can actually tell you about consumers. Why people love stickers is simply because it gives them a way to express themselves better. It's an outlet for self-expression that is often missing in written communication. So yeah, your customers or people you're creating innovations for, they might not want to use silly stickers, but how many of them would appreciate it if you were to give them a tool that will help them express themselves better in their communications with their peers. And that's what all these effects and like what Facebook Messenger and what iMessage did, that they took an innovation that seems silly on the outside, dissected it for the inside, and applied it and translated it for their own industry, their own target audience. And that's basically the right frame of mind when you're looking at Asian innovations. The more obvious example comes from the messaging economy, that is WeChat. So I'm sure everybody is familiar with WeChat. It's the messaging app that everybody in China uses. It has more than 900 million users, and it's really more than just a messaging app. You can basically manage your entire life on WeChat. I have a video, ironically, it's from the New York Times, that tells you how WeChat works and how people are using WeChat in China. Some of you might have watched it before, but it's still a very good storytelling piece, so let's just roll it right now.
Hypothetically, imagine you're sitting at home and one day you notice your corgi is dirty. You open WeChat, hit a few buttons, and a few hours later a man shows up at your door with some shampoo and a big vacuum. Your dog gets cleaned and he looks great. You take a photo, you share it with your friends, and tag the dog cleaning business. You haven't left the app. Your friend who likes Hello Kitty and works a boring office job is slacking off at work and looking at WeChat. She sees the photo of your clean corgi. She decides she wants her poodle clean. She clicks the tag on your photo and orders the same service. Within seconds, the man with the big vacuum is on his way to her house. She pays him, and he's happy because he got paid instantly on WeChat. She starts chatting with you to thank you. Neither of you have left the app. While chatting, she tells you about a new hip noodle joint. She says, you have to come. It's a schlep, but you accept. She orders food while still at her desk. You order a taxi. She pays for the food. On the way to her house, the man with the big vacuum invests the money he earned from both of you into a wealth management product that's probably a little too risky. Neither of you nor the man with the big vacuum have left the app. Both of you arrive and the app tells the kitchen you're there. Your WeChat profile photo pops up on the wall. It's an old photo from the year you had that weird part in your hair. Of course she makes a comment. Your food is served. You notice your meat is a bit overcooked, so you snap a photo and post a disparaging restaurant review. You're already on your phone and you remember you still owe your friend money because she paid. You transfer her money. Neither of you, the man with the big vacuum, nor the restaurant have left the app. At the restaurant there are no menus, there are no waiters, there is no cashier. There is only WeChat.
So that's how it works. And I first started talking about WeChat, I think a couple years ago, back in 2015, and we were in Sydney for one of our trend conferences. And when we were talking about WeChat messaging platforms turning into all these ecosystems, people were like, oh, yeah, that's interesting, but I don't really know about that. You know, people here don't really use WeChat, so I'm not sure how I can actually apply it and whether I should really be looking at it in the first place. Well, yes, and maybe you can think that way too, that people here don't really use the same messaging platforms, but they do use other messaging platforms and other platforms for that matter. And before long, we heard that Facebook Messenger was going to open up its platform to third-party developers. And today, essentially, it's going to be the next kind of ecosystem that WeChat was a few years ago. And we see all these businesses now jumping onto Facebook Messenger to deliver services, offer experiences to like customers, essentially what all the businesses in China have been doing for the longest time. So Burberry gives you this interactive experience for Fashion Week on Facebook Messenger. You can purchase your next Burberry trench coat from Facebook Messenger. You can order your Domino's pizza from Facebook Messenger's chatbot. And all these things, and we hear that iOS is opening up the iMessage platform to third-party developers and essentially turning this messaging platform to another ecosystem, just like what WeChat is all about. And while all these global players are catching up, WeChat and whatever people are doing with WeChat in China, they're already getting more advanced. You heard in the video, you saw in the video that noodle joint that doesn't have any waiters, any cashiers, any menu, it only has WeChat. So it's this noodle joint in Beijing. And they basically operate the entire business operations via WeChat. So they don't need any stuff except for the people who cook in the kitchen. Bingo Box in Guangdong province in China is basically the Chinese version of Amazon Go. And you guessed it right. The whole operation is centered via WeChat. So you scan a QR code via your WeChat account to go in. You scan your purchases. You pay for your purchases via WeChat wallet. And then you scan the QR code again to get out of the store. And once the system verifies that you paid for your purchases, you can get out of the store. So the whole point of why I'm sharing all these case studies from Asia and all these innovations is to basically give you this new perspective that when you look at all these innovations that are really interesting, some of them might feel like they're not directly transferable or applicable to whatever it is you're doing, but look beyond the face value of the innovation and think about the insights that it actually gives you for whatever it is that you do over here in the States. So in terms of like the messaging platform, think about what you can do differently if you know that one simple platform can deliver that level of convenience, of seamlessness, of ease of service. What can you do differently to serve the people you're serving in the same way, inspired by all these examples? So we know that this first statement is true. Let's move on. I believe everybody is also familiar with Twitch. So it started with live streaming of people gaming, and you can earn gifts from like live streaming yourself, doing gaming and all these things. In South Korea, we've had this phenomenon for quite some time. It's called mukbang. It's like a combination of two words. So mokta is to eat, bangsong is broadcast. So basically, people just broadcast themselves, live stream themselves, eating insane amounts of food on the internet, and they earn a lot of money from it because people send them virtual gifts via their live streaming. And more recently, this is what's been sweeping Southeast Asia by storm. The teenagers are just jumping onto this platform, Bigo Live. It's a Singapore-based app, and they live stream themselves doing the most mundane things, like doing homework or doing chores. And they have more than 30 million users, and they're topping all the App Store charts. And it's not just popular in Southeast Asia, but live streaming is also big in China. More than 300 million people use live streaming apps in China. And to put that into perspective, that's almost the entire population of the United States. And last year, this whole industry made up a $3 billion industry in China. And again, to put that into perspective, the box office revenues in China, which is the biggest in the world, last year was $7 billion. So it's almost half of that entire revenue. And one of the more interesting apps in this landscape is Kuaishou. And Kuaishou is a live streaming app that's popular with people in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities and rural areas. And most of the video content actually feature rural living, so like people in farming communities or factory parks. And more than 5 million videos are uploaded each day. And so we think about it and we say, that's very interesting, but I don't think the people that I'm serving, they are about to live stream themselves eating lunch or doing like groceries anytime soon. Well, of course not, but then again, look beyond just the innovation at face value and think about what does this really tell you about people, about consumers. In Asia, live streaming is big because it's an outlet for people to channel their aspiration. All these teenagers in Southeast Asia, 9 to 5, they're just studying, going to school, so they want to feel like their lives are worth something more. And in China, in a country of more than 1 billion people, you want to be more than just a face in the crowd. And with live streaming, now everybody can be their own little celebrity in their own little corner of the internet. So it gives them that sense of recognition, of self-worth, that their lives are worth more than the mundane 9 to 5 that they see every single day. WeChat even just launched a drone that with the sole purpose of sending live stream content to your friends on the messaging app. And of course, there is backlash. People complain that in some countries, the content of the live stream content contains too much cleavage. Or in China, the government actually just passed a law that makes it officially illegal for you to live stream yourselves on the internet eating a banana because they say it's too provocative. But then again, what is the lesson that we can learn? It's all about, at the heart of it, people just want connection. So you might not be creating innovations for all these people who are going to go and live stream themselves, but how many of you actually take care of people who are stressed urbanites, single households, they're isolated and they're lonely and they're looking for connection, and think about how you can serve that need in a better way. So this second statement is actually a trick statement because it's sort of true, but they're not making thousands of dollars, they're making tens of thousands of dollars. So this is my false statement. And which brings us to our third statement, which is correct. In China, you can order a test drive on your neighbor's car. And this last point is to show that innovation inspiration does not just come from the very hardcore technology kind of development, but it can come from anywhere. Take, for example, the sharing economy and the P2P businesses. So TT is the Chinese version of Uber, and so they're the ride-hailing app of China, has over 300 million users, 14 million drivers, and they said, oh, with such a large scale of network, we can actually leverage this to do other things. And so they partner with car dealers, and so people can request for test drives in certain makes of cars through the network, and you can actually purchase cars through the network as well. And when you do that, you get discounts and cashbacks and rewards if you promise that, okay, in the future, people can use my car for future test drives. And in the first 90 days of rolling out this initiative, they processed more than 1.4 million test drive requests. So that's a very interesting model that they're actually leveraging their network for. Or in India, Rental Mojo is basically on-demand furniture. And what they say is that people these days, they live in cities, they rent spaces, and it's such a pain to keep buying new furniture whenever you move or having to move your furniture with you. So rather than having to do that, just pay us a subscription fee and you get access to furniture on demand wherever you need it. Style Theory is my personal favorite. It's based in Singapore, where I'm also based at. It's like Rent the Runway, but it's for daily clothes. So they stock mid-range designer labels that retail for around $200, $300 per piece. And so I pay them a subscription fee, around 90 Singapore dollars a month, which is around 60, 70 US dollars. And I get unlimited access to their wardrobe. So I just get clothes from them, return them, and get new ones whenever I want to. And in Indonesia, Slingshot is the newest startup that we have spotted, and they just created a virtual network of P2P stores. So they do it in conjunction with Alfamart, which is like Indonesia's 7-Eleven. And how it works is like this. So I can open a virtual store on my phone or on my iPad, and I stock my store with inventory from the grocery store. And when you want to buy something, instead of having to go all the way to the grocery store, you come to my virtual store, you purchase things, have your goods delivered to your house, and I get a cut from that sale and that purchase. So they are really leveraging on all these people to serve people in accessible areas and promote entrepreneurship as well. So why I'm sharing all these models is to say that, when you're looking for the next breakthrough in the sharing economy or the next P2P business model that's the most innovative, people usually look at right here at the Valley. But if you would just look at another place that not many people are looking at and see how all of these interesting business models are coming about. And in Asia, it's especially interesting because it's a place where people don't really have a culture of ownership in the first place. So people are just coming into the middle classes, they're just starting to have money, so they're not used to owning all these things anyway. And so the sharing economy is limitless. It's full of possibilities. Everything can be shared. The latest craze right now in South Korea and in China is related to smartphone batteries. So you can even have a sharing economy for batteries. If you're out and about and your phone dies, you just find like an outlet that you can get new batteries from and then return it to like another outlet. And so the final light bulb moment of the day that I want to leave you with is this. For your next ideas, your next inspiration, to keep an eye out on competition and what can possibly kill your business, are you really looking at the right places and the right sources of innovation? Or are there other sources of innovation, different regions, different industries that you can look to give you that edge in your next innovation journey? And if you forget everything else that I say today, I want to leave you with this photo. It went viral in Asia, I think late 2016, early 2017. There was a flood in Hong Kong. And this old uncle was just sitting there happily in Starbucks reading his newspaper while the flood waters were rising around him. So don't be like the Starbucks uncle. You're reading your newspaper, you think you're getting all the information that you need to know to make sure that your business stays afloat while the flood waters of pace of change, innovation is really rising around you without you knowing that. And with that, I leave you with that thought, and thank you very much.